is up? Welcome to Dharma Time here on WPSN99.com. As always, I'm your host, the Dharma Guy, here joined with the Dope Doctor. Let me pull him up. What's up, man?
What's up, man?
Another day in paradise, man. Living the dream. Living the dream. Well, somebody's dream.
It's living the nightmare and the dream. Depends on who you are.
Exactly, man. Somebody's dream, I'm sure.
Yep.
Anyways, thanks for tuning in, everybody. As always, we're able to do this because of the fine institutions that were in our intro, in addition to the number and the website that is directly behind his head, and that is nowmattersmore.org or 833-NOW-MATTERS. It's 833-NOW-MATTERS. And we, of course, help individuals who are struggling with the disease of addiction. So if you or anybody you know is in that arena, needs some help, needs some guidance, reach out to us. That's what we do. You can go to the website, you can read about who we are, you can submit an application, or you can hit that donate button, which we all love. And then, of course, we have an event coming up on the 26th of this month, which is vastly approaching, and it's called the Hopeathon. You can read more about that at thehopeathon.com, or you can go to nowmattersmore.org and click the little link for the Hopeathon, and it'll explain more about it. It's essentially, in a nutshell, 24 hours of hope. We're going to do a kind of a streamathon. It's a modern take on the old telethon, where we're going to be live for 24 hours and talking to you guys about hope and showcasing some talent and kind of just coming together for just a good 24 hours to support this cause and the people therein. So by all means, we look forward to having you out there. And then also just a quick note for us. I just did it this morning, but for anybody who's watching this who was signed up to go to our golf tournament, we obviously postponed it from the end of March, early April to September. But we have found out that that's just not going to be a viable option for us this year, so we have canceled this year's golf tournament. For those of you looking forward to come, we apologize. We hope you understand. But due to COVID and all the complications therein, we had to cancel this year. But that just means 2021 is gonna be an awesome one as well. So stay tuned for those details.
We shall see if we're out of this yet.
Yeah, who knows, man? I better. Yeah, I don't want to commit to anything just yet. But I'm hoping that as things progress, we'll be able to have that, because it's always a good time. Everybody has a blast there. It's for a good cause. Obviously, it's one of our best fundraisers, and just all around, it's a win-win for everybody. So really looking forward to having that. Anything you want to add before we get started, man?
No, I just think it's kind of interesting and funny a little bit, but not so funny for if you suffered this. But we didn't have a summer this year for real. So I don't feel like I've had a summer since I got out of school. So I'm kind of laughing about it partly.
Yeah.
Because it's like, that's reality, kids. The summers don't exist.
Yeah. Summer for me stopped being a thing once I got out of school.
Right.
Once I got out of school, there's no such thing as summer break and everything.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's a Wednesday, bro.
Yeah, the only adults that still look at summer as a thing are teachers.
Yeah.
But on the other side, I can't believe it's actually over. We're actually in the fall. I don't know if it officially started yet, but
I don't know. I'm not that guy that knows the start dates of the seasons. I do know that I've watched people posting pictures and stuff of like snow already, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It makes me like homesick, man. Like, I'm desperately trying to see if there's a way I can figure out a way to get back up in the snow before the year's up, but I don't anticipate that happening.
I'm Floridian now, man. Been here too long, so I have adjusted. I am fully acclimated.
What is the date for too long? Because I've been here for like over 30 years so far, and I'm just not acclimated yet.
I think age has something to do with it. But I just feel like I'm Floridian now. I've never lived this long in any state. I've lived in this state longer than anywhere else.
Yeah, same here.
So I know more about this state now than anywhere else I've ever been, as far as like in adult years. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So I guess really technically, I mean, I can keep going around and saying I'm a Texan, but I feel like I am what a Floridian is. And a Floridian typically is from somewhere else that has now lived here, and I'm living here by choice. I'm not forced to be here, so clearly I prefer it here.
Sure.
Because if not, why would I stay?
Convenience, I guess. But yeah, so
they got pumpkins.
Yeah, I guess he says there's pumpkin everywhere. So apparently, like I said, I don't know what that date is, but fall apparently has officially started. I know the hurricane season is officially started. Every time I turn around, there's another one out there somewhere, and Obviously, our thoughts go out to everybody who's currently being affected by the one up in the Panhandle and Louisiana.
Yeah.
Hopefully everybody up there is able to come out the end of that safe and sound and made whole.
You know the sad thing about right now, mid-September,
What's that?
our wives are getting older this month.
Yeah, man. The 20th is fastly approaching. I got to figure out what I'm gonna. I don't even know what I'm gonna do yet, man. My wife is so hard to buy for.
You can talk about it. She's not watching. She's
No,
not
she'll
listening.
never watch this, so we're good. Yeah. So anybody has any ideas, put them out there. Anyway, so let's talk, man. So,
All right.
as we all know, there's a ton of stuff happening in the world at the moment, socially, politically, entertainment. In our personal lives. There's just no shortage of things that are taking place, and as always, we try to have the show. I never wanted this show to be like a standing on a pulpit. So we try to find real life events that are happening and try to give a spiritual perspective on things.
Yep.
And then we also try not to go too far the other direction and just have a show where we're just complaining about stuff, right? We try to find a teachable moment somewhere in there. And there's been a lot of things happening in the last few days that I think we stumbled across some teachable moments. So that's what the goal of today is. So I think that's kind of the approach we're going to take today. Is we're going to just comment on some of the stuff that we're seeing and try to give a spiritual take on it. And out of seeing all the things that I've been looking at, what came to my mind, and we talked about it obviously earlier this morning when we were talking about the show, was humility, man. A lot of what I'm seeing right now, I think, kind of can, in some sense, be boiled down to a lack of humility amongst many people. Meaning, if there was just a little bit more humility, I think that a lot of the arguments would naturally subside that we're all having right now. And I've got a list here that I'm going to try to keep us somewhat on track today. But the first one I have written down here is sports, right? So for those of you who don't either pay attention to sporting events or things of that nature, or just don't care, maybe you've been living under a rock and you're not aware of it. I don't know, but I'm a big sports fan. So is he, and I've noticed that I haven't really been watching sports the last few days, for the last few weeks, and some of it is just I've been distracted with other stuff, but also a large part of it, and I wouldn't have known this, like I wouldn't have guessed this ahead of time, and I didn't even realize it until it happened, that I was really impacted with the political statements that are being made, right? And I'm not going to get into whether I agree or disagree with things. What I'm going to get into is, you're famous for saying all the time, stay in your lane, right? And what I mean by that is we're so inundated every day with political messages and social messages and the election and just all this stuff everywhere I turn. And one of the things that I was missing about sports is for that small amount of time, I could just turn it off. For that hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it was, I could completely disappear and just have a little bit of time and just be entertained. And what I'm noticing now is just that's not possible, right? There's all these messages being sent to us and all these stances being made. And it bothers me. Not the stance in particular, but the fact that they are taking a stance. And I'm not in a position to tell anybody to not utilize the platform, but this is where I think humility comes, right? And what I mean by that is I don't see humility. What I see are stances being taken and utilized as if that is the only stance to have, and there's no discussion about it. And that was my problem, right? Is to me, I think the stance should be, let's all just take a step back, right? We don't have all the facts, all the knowledge, all the information. My opinion is just one amongst many. And my opinion doesn't necessarily mean more than yours because I'm athletic. Because at the end of the day, a lot of these athletes, they're not scholars, they're not professors, they're not well educated on a wide array of subjects. They're famous because their athletic ability enables them to be famous. So that doesn't mean that their opinion is any more or less credible than, the guy down at the local corner store. And so I think that the humility comes into play from them to say, hey, I'm not qualified to comment on that. So I'm going to respect my place and my platform and use it to say, hey, let's all take a step back and stop acting as if our stance is the only stance. Let's take a step back and say, because whatever happened to that, right? Like, I've lived my life where I try. This is going to sound weird, and maybe not taken out of context, I guess, but I try not to be wrong. And what I mean by that is, if I don't know something for absolute certainty, I don't really comment on it typically. My comment is usually limited to, I don't really know. I don't know enough about that to really, yeah, because I don't want to be wrong, right? Number one. Number two, I've learned in my life that I don't. The older I get, the less I know. And so certain situations will come up. I might give an opinion, but I preface it all by saying, look, man, I don't really know. Like, I don't know all the facts on that. I'm not well versed in that. I haven't looked into it. I'd have to look into it more. But based upon what I know, this is, but I don't see a lot of people doing that. And that's because I think a lack of humility, a lack of knowledge of saying, look, my opinion is just one of many. And it's just as valid as many. And we're going to talk about multiple areas of life, but in this particular segment, we're mostly focusing on the sports. But I promise you, if you stick around, we've got more to get into. And I think we're not the only ones that feel this way, because the ratings are plummeting right now. And I think it can be misconstrued as in people don't agree with the message. And I'm sure that there are those out there that don't. But I think the overwhelming majority of at least the people I've spoken to is they don't want any message. They just want entertainment. What are your thoughts on that, man? What do you think?
Well, as the most humble person Trinity,
sure.
My opinion is probably the right opinion.
Sure. Says everybody.
Nah, first of all, I don't think people are speaking, whatever platform they come from, and so we'll start with sports. I don't think they're speaking because they feel like they're scholars or they know more about a situation. I think that they're speaking out because it's an emotional charged situation. Sure. And I think this is where even as a parent, right? Like even in your own home, I'm going to shrink it down to like your own home. If there's a situation in your own home where emotions are driving the bus, someone in that home needs to kind of say, I hear you, but we need to tone down the emotion part, right? Because you can't make decisions out of emotion. We say that in business. We say that in relationships. Hell, we say that in recovery, Trinity. We say don't make huge decisions in your first year of recovery. You try not to make major decisions based on whatever emotional stuff you're dealing with. And yet, people are about to vote on their emotion. People are making these decisions that are business decisions.
Yep.
The NFL has made some business decisions. NBA has made some business decisions based on emotion. And I think, unfortunately, I hear a lot of, we need to listen. But the only people that we keep hearing listening are people like Drew Brees, who made a comment. It was sort of controversial, got a lot of heat for it. And what did he do? He said, I'm going to listen. He listened and then recanted on his statement. Yeah. That was very big of him, and I applaud someone like that to do that. Yet, I always hear only certain types of individuals listening. I think, unfortunately, when it comes to humility, we all have a lot to say. We all have an opinion. We all have an emotion behind it. I have an emotion behind a lot of the events that have happened in my life, and to the events that have happened in the most recent year or so. However, because of my other experiences, which is not just my trauma or just not my negative experiences, I can't let my negative experiences drive my thought process. I've also had very positive experiences. I also know that a lot of times, at first glance, something appears to be a certain way, and then upon gathering more information, it's something else is also present.
And context.
I've also learned one of the things that we speak a lot here on Dharma Time is that two things can be true. So although something can be very unjust, and we can have systems out there that are a certain way and need to be corrected, to use blanket statements of all, or to signal out someone as innocent or guilty based on something similar that happened in my life, or because we look similar or we are similar in some way, shape, or form, that is not giving the proper respect to making a good decision or a good judgment. Instead, I'll be operating on emotional based on first glance or again, my history, and typically we use our negative history as a driving force of making decisions or thoughts rather than our positive history. Does that make sense to you, Trinity? In other words, how many times have we all been around a teacher? Let's use teachers, not even a different level of authority.
That's on my list actually too. So what a segue.
Okay, well, I didn't mean to segue, but I apologize. But for instance, you know my stance on teachers, and all too often,
yes, I do.
I say that because it kind of like it ruffles people up a little bit, but I'm only saying it because I hate that there's any kind of class or segment of society where they're like untouchable. Like you can't say anything negative about them. Like you can't comment on them. And I think anytime you have a segment of society where they're like off limits because of who they are, because they're like saintly, right? I say, wait a minute, my statements revolve around the few negative ones I had. That's what it is.
Of course.
I understand that. Did I have a lot of good ones? Probably. But for some reason, those didn't impact my opinion.
Sure.
Is the negative ones. So I know that's my issue. I know that's my thing. You know what I mean? So I only say that when people go like, all teachers this, I go, there's no all anybody. There's no all anything, including teachers. And what I see right now is that if anything should happen right now, and it's from one side or the other, the whole side, if it fits the narrative, we run with it. We run with it, and we're seeing it on the back of helmets. We're seeing it in commercials. We're seeing it plastered everywhere. And I want to pause and say, we don't know all the facts yet. And although something is horrible and tragic and horrible, I don't think any of us disagree with how horrible that is, or how bad that is, or what that is, if what it is true. But should we not take a pause from our emotion and at least let facts play out? Because if it is true, aren't the facts going to play out that way, Trinity?
Yeah. Well, I mean, using the sports analogy, right? And I'm going to get back to teachers in a second. But using even the sports analogy, I think it's interesting to me that in our own sports, we have things like instant replay. And so when a call is made, and it's not inherently obvious right off the start, we go to what's called instant replay. They stop play. They take 3 or 4 referees who all huddle around and look at all these different angles, and it takes them sometimes upwards of 5 to 10 minutes to get a call correct. But yet, many people in the world at the moment, including some of those very same athletes, will look at a video one time that's like 90 seconds with no context before or after, and they made up their mind. And it's like, whoa, dude, even in your own sport, they don't do that. But yet, you're able to do something which is so much more complex than just who tipped it last, right?
Right.
And so that, to me, is where the humility comes in. Humility of knowing I don't have all the facts. What I do have is an emotionally charged opinion. And I need to be aware of that. And so I'm going to purposely withhold that because I'm humble enough to know that my emotionally charged opinion is only one of many. And some of them are contradicting one another, because they're all valid. That's the thing that we can't wrap our heads around, right? Is my opinion is valid, and your opinion that could be vastly different than mine is also valid. Like, just because my experiences say that you're wrong doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that based upon my experiences, I don't see it the way you do. Maybe I should listen more and understand it more, and vice versa, right? And to kind of use the segue that you did there a little bit with the teacher's part, that was another one on my list, right? And so during this COVID outbreak, my kids have been homeschooled just during this first quarter before we kind of decide what we're going to do. And what that's done is it's allowed me to overhear certain things that I otherwise wouldn't have been privy to. So my 16-year-old is in high school, and one of her classes, I'm trying to be as vague as I can because I'm not trying to call anybody out. It was let's just say the class itself was very much based on perceived facts. And I use the word perceived there. It was history, right? And history is obviously, it's written by the winner, so it's perspective. So in and of itself, history oftentimes can be very subjective. But
yes, we've noticed that.
Yeah, well, and that's that's part of on my list as well. So during this history class, I was in the kitchen doing something, and her computer's in the living room, and I'm hearing the teacher give a lot of opinions. And it bothered me, and so we had a conversation about it later on, and my wife nor my daughter could understand immediately why I had such a problem with that. And in this case, how it relates to humility, right? So in this particular case, this teacher, I don't think they had any malintent, but I don't think they were humble enough to understand what the bigger ramifications of what they are currently doing, because they're in a position of power and authority, and so they were not only instructing the curriculum, but when you start to throw your opinion on there, it's unfair because you don't have somebody else of equal power to give the opposite side of that, to refute anything, so they can understand both sides and make their own decision. What you're doing is you're subconsciously impacting their implicit bias, whether you know it or not, because they look up to you, they respect you, they value you, they look to you as a teacher, as the knower of fact. So when you give an opinion, they're going to assume that your opinion was based upon a lot of research and everything else, not just your own personal experiences. And so they're going to take what you said as basically that's it. And what their little minds are not equipped to understand yet is your opinion is just yours. It is based upon your experiences, your value system, your moral system, and you're, for lack of a better term, you're indoctrinating this whole classroom with your opinion, whether you know it or not. That's not your job. Your job is to teach fact. Leave the political debates and the philosophical debates for those classes when they're more better equipped to do that.
Right.
But when you're not doing that, whether you realize it or not, you're passing on your bias to these kids, and I think that's very unethical, and I don't think it's humble at all. Meaning, you need to be humble enough to stay in your lane, right? Like, we did it for this show. Dude, there's a lot of stuff that was going on that I was like irritated with, that I just want to get up here and bitch and moan for an hour. But I was humble enough to realize that that's not my place, right? That's not why people tune into this show. For those of you who tuned in, thank you, and I hope you continue to do so. But I like to think you tune in because you want a spiritual take on things. You want a lesson out of this. You want some sort of something from it other than just hearing somebody complain for an hour. So therefore, I had to figure out, well, what's the lesson here? What's the bigger meaning? And that's when we came up with humility. So even I had to take a step back and realize, well, what's my role here? What's my place? And so I think that's part of being humble, is taking a step back and realizing your place and staying in your lane a little bit.
Yeah, and I agree with that, because I think that when it comes to the lanes, let's talk about the lanes. Before we talk about people staying in their lanes, what about the lanes? Here are the lanes. I mean, we've been locked up. I mean, earlier we were joking around how fast summer went. Dude, we've been locked up without sports for a very long time. We've been locked up without a lot of human interaction, without a lot of the outlets that we have had. Yeah. And these outlets are created. Our artistic outlets have been out there for a reason. There's a reason music is such a big thing within our lives, and why concerts sell out. There's a reason we have plays. There's a reason we have movie theaters. There's a reason we have restaurants and bars. There's a reason we have all these social gathering places. Hell, there's a big, huge reason we have sports, other than just to be a great platform for businesses to give us their product or sell their product, right? It's more than just selling soap. This is so much bigger than selling soap. But we do realize that selling soap allows all those platforms to exist.
Yeah.
A matter of fact, it sells so much soap that those same entertainers that used to be the worst paid, singers used to be the worst paid, or actors used to be the worst paid, athletes used to be the worst paid. All of them used to be very mistreated. If you look at the history of those people, they all lived like paupers. And then, as in certain societies, depending on whether plays became the thing, or singing became the thing, or sports became the thing, all of a sudden something changed. Their level of importance changed. Their level of being able to get financial gain from it changed. And so now we're at a place where those are our most viewed, most watched, highest level of authority in everything that we do, it seems, right? So there, we have placed them on a very high pedestal. And I think that when we talk about lanes, there's a lane of why these artistic expressions, they existed in the first place, because we needed respite. We needed a break from our lives. We needed a break from our home life, our work life, the humdrum of life, or whatever it is. We needed somewhere to celebrate, to excite, somewhere to gather with like-minded individuals and all cheer for a certain group against another group. We all needed to celebrate someone else's athleticism or artistic expression because we wished we could have it, but we don't. So we're in awe of someone else having it. We needed that. And all of that has been gone for months and months and months. We've had to replay old stuff or search real hard online or somewhere else to find it. And while we did that, we got hit by other things in play. These political things in play and these unfortunate incidences that are horrible in play that everyone, by the way, agrees with. I always go back to that. Nobody disagrees with the underlying pain of the deal or why it's important to discuss. Yep. But what happened is that lane, the lane that used to exist for just, I want to be able to escape and just enjoy respite from thinking about these political issues or COVID-19 or anything else, and that lane has shrunken to the size of when you're on the freeway, Trinity. You ever drive on a freeway, and I know you have, this is rhetorical, where the emergency lane is not the emergency lane, and instead they butted up one of those little concrete walls that are about 3 or 4 feet high.
Yeah.
And then on both sides you have no emergency lane. And don't you feel like, why the hell did they do this? I'm on a freeway and there's no emergency lane on this particular stretch of road. There's actually concrete barriers within a yellow marking or white marking, and there it is. So there's no room, no wiggle room for error.
Nope.
And that, unfortunately, is where I feel we're at right now. I feel like we're all driving on a freeway over speed. We're driving way too fast because we all feel it's very important to get where we're going right now. Yet there's actually no wiggle room for anyone to drive incorrectly at all, and there's no emergency lane to get off and pause for a second, whether we have a flat tire, if we need to pull over and talk about it, or if we need to look down at directions, or if we need to answer the phone. There is no wiggle room. So it's almost like we're on that road and everybody is texting and driving at the same time. That's to me.
Yeah. And the other take, and I agree with all that. And the other take, I would say, for the staying in your lane part, the other stance on it would be, and it took me a little while myself to fully, I guess, comprehend this, right? And that is understanding your strengths and your weaknesses, right? Staying in your lane, meaning, like, perfect example, in my house, in my own home, my wife is phenomenal at arts and crafts. Like, when it comes to painting, creating things, that kind of stuff, phenomenal at it. Like, so good at it. It's disgusting, right? Yeah. It's like, you ever want to feel... Yeah, if you ever want to feel inadequate, try to go to like a painting class with my wife, and you'll feel very inadequate afterwards.
And then you did great, by the way. Time out, my friend. I saw your painting. I think you did phenomenal.
And she tries to make you feel better too by saying, art is subjective. It's all no, yours is better. Mine sucked. But I know that, right? Like, I know that's just not my lane. I'm not, when it comes to arts and crafts here at the house, if the kids want to paint like a collage of some sort, I'm not the guy for that. That's just not my lane. That's not my strength. That's not what I'm good at. It doesn't mean I won't participate, and it doesn't mean I won't encourage it, but I'm not going to head that up. That's not going to be my thing. That'll be hers. She'll organize it. She'll be the go-to, leader, if you will, in that particular instance, and I'm just along for the ride. If I participate at all, maybe I will, maybe I won't. I sometimes choose not to because it isn't my lane, and I know that I'll get frustrated at my inability to take what's in my head and put it out in front of me. And I'm not skillful enough to just be okay with that. I get frustrated that it doesn't turn out the way I wanted it to. And so I could turn a potentially joyous experience into kind of a shitty one for everybody because I'm just frustrated and upset. And so sometimes I'll choose to not participate because I'm staying in my lane. It's okay to not be good at something. It's okay to be unskillful. It's okay. We don't have to be perfect at everything. The problem comes is when you're not aware of that and you try to force it. And when you force it, you're getting out of your lane and you're trying to do things that you're just not good at. Instead of just being humble enough to realize, you know what, that's just not my thing. I'm not good at it. And I think that we do that a lot in multiple areas. I picked a trivial example when it comes to arts and crafts, but for other people, man, maybe, in your own interpersonal relationships, maybe, I don't know, there's a various topics like communication, whatever it is. If it's not your lane, that's okay. Maybe finances, right? Maybe finances is just not your lane. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. So if you're in a relationship with somebody who is, let them do it. That's what they're good at. Decision making, cleaning, whatever it is, right? Like that, like a perfect example, right? I'm trying to keep it as close to home as I can, so I don't offend anybody else. But
sure.
And plus, I think a lot of them are relatable, right? I was single for many years. I was a single dad. I did laundry, I cleaned the house, I did everything I could do, right? However, my clothes never smell so fresh from when my wife does them. I don't know what she does different. She does something different, but they smell amazing for like a week. To whereas mine would smell clean for like a couple of days. Hers smell amazing for like a week, right? So I just kind of let her do. I let her do the laundry. I don't say anything about it. I'll chip in obviously if it needs to be done, but I just realize that she does it better than me, and it
That's
doesn't
good
mean
manipulation.
that, yeah, right. It doesn't mean that I'm less than. It doesn't mean that I'm incapable. It doesn't mean that. It just means that there's somebody out there that does something better than I do, and I think that in a society, we for whatever reason we view somebody else being at a better skill level than us as a bad thing. Like we're somehow less than. And that's just not the case, right? We all have things that we excel in, and we all have things that we don't excel in. It's okay to acknowledge that. It doesn't mean you don't necessarily work on it to get better, but like I'm not going to work to be better at crafts because I know that my mind just doesn't work that way. I'm not interested in it. And that's okay. So I modify my behavior, and that's to me part of staying in your lane is being humble enough to acknowledge your skill set and what you're good at, what you're not good at, and honing in on those things.
Well, some of that is, I mean, look, I have flown on a plane many times. You have flown on a plane many times. Hell, I'll even take it down. I have driven in a car for most of my life. Yet, as many times as I've driven in a car, Trini, and I've driven long distances and have clearly taken care of the cars that I have owned long enough to get me to where I need to get to. Yeah,
I just had to put that one out there.
I know. Yet
we run an accountable program here, man.
How much experience I have in a car, I still can't fix one. I'm not an expert on cars. Don't claim to be. I can't fix a car. Can't diagnose what needs to be done with a car, how to fix a car. And the simplest of fixes that a car may need to somebody that is an expert in that area, can't do. And I've gotten cars fixed by people that thought they were experts, and I believe them. And I believed them that they were experts, and it was not fixed the same way as a true expert was. Now, that's not saying that there's not those what do you call shade tree mechanics out there that are really good at what they do. I'm just simply saying that not all people that think they're experts in something are, and not because you experience something or even know something of a subject makes you an expert or makes you someone that should be speaking on that lane. And I think those things are important to understand. And I think part of humility is knowing there's so much to a lot of things that I do not know. And part of humility is also knowing your relationship with others. Like I know my place in society. That's what makes me comfortable and happy with how I live and how I exist and how I manage my day, is because I think I have a good grasp right now at this time in my life of what society wants from me as far as like professionally, as a member of it. I think I have a real good grasp on it, and I feel like I'm doing it. So I feel comfortable and happy in my life because of that, because I'm currently doing all of the roles that I feel people want from me. Whereas when you're younger, you really don't know what the world wants from you. You don't even really know what the family wants from you, because a lot of times it feels like what people want from you is not something you really want to do or like doing.
Sure.
And so a lot of you are unhappy in your life, quite honestly, because you're probably engaging a lot of hours in an activity or making a living of something you don't really want to do. You don't view yourself that way, but that's the way the world kind of looks at you or needs you, or that's the way your family looks at you and needs you, and therefore you do it because you're doing it as a sacrifice, right? Well, I don't want to be a martyr, and I think that's one of the things that make it difficult for people to understand that they can take a step back from having a very serious opinion on certain issues that are going on. Of course, you're allowed to have an emotional opinion, but just understand it's an emotional opinion, and say that. Like, I have no problem saying, look, this pisses me off, or I like this, or I don't like this. However, at the end of a training, every time we talk, what do we always end with? We always end with, yeah, but we'll see what happens. We don't really know. We'll see how it all plays out in the end, because we know there could be more to every situation.
Well, plus we both admit our biases, right? Like,
yes.
I think that's the other part of being humble, is understanding that you are inherently biased towards things or against things. You know, for example, that's the other thing that one of the topics I have listed here was, you know, the information and manipulation, right?
Right.
I think that,
here, I pause right here. I'll start, Trinity, and then you can jump on. Like, I know Pittsburgh Steelers is the best football team out there. I know it. But I have to listen. I allow
The
you
views
to
and
speak.
opinions expressed on the show.
I allow you to tell me about the 49ers and what you think. I let you.
Sure.
Is that where you were going to go? I know that's what you were going to say.
Well, but that is an example, right? Like,
Yeah.
if you are a fan of a particular team,
Right.
Oftentimes if there's a questionable call, you're going to see it one way that benefits your team. And that's a biased opinion, Some of us try not to, because there are times where I'll see the 49ers. Don't get me wrong, I want the call, but I can admit, we probably shouldn't have gotten that one. But I'm biased, so give me the call, right? But what we don't realize, though, like we all have this I'm using the collective we, right? And there's obviously outliers. So if you're that one person, maybe I'm not referring to you, but we collectively walk around daily thinking that we're impervious to manipulation.
Right.
We all walk around thinking that we're this, like, we scoff at these people that are in like cults and stuff, and some of the things that they do and say like, "Oh, how would you ever?" But yet we're the biggest cult of all, right? Like we're already been duped by everybody.
Yep.
Look up Century of the Self and Edwin Barnet and Freud and all the things that they did and why we do what we do, and you'll understand what I'm talking about, right? Like there was a time, like in today's world, just something as simple as clothing and self-expression. I say today that you express yourself with the clothes that you wear. Everybody, unilaterally was like, yeah, it makes sense. We didn't used to do that, people. We used to wear clothes based upon function. Did it help me do my job? Did it protect me? Did it have access to tools and things of that nature? I didn't care what it looked like. I didn't care what color. It didn't say anything about me other than this is the work that I do for a living. And that was one of the first things that Edwin Barnet did when he got over here, because he was the one who was in charge of all the propaganda for the war and stuff. So he came over here. The very first thing he did was sold cigarettes to women. And then after that, once they realized how good he was, the clothing industry got. He is the one that started attaching self-expression to clothing. He's the one that started getting celebrities to be spokespeople and stuff. He started all that. And today, we all just assume that that's how you express yourself. No, you're manipulated. Left to your own devices, you would never come up with that. You're told that that's how you express yourself, so that's what you do to express yourself. That's just a small example, but we do it every day. And part of being humble is to realize that you are susceptible to that, right? Like, I've seen this play out in real time a lot in the last month, right? I look at different sources of videos and things of that nature, right? I look on Reddit and stuff where you'll have regular, average, everyday people filming things and putting it out there for people to see, and then you have the mainstream media. So there's been a lot of stuff that's been happening lately where I'll see it before the mainstream media is able to pick up on it. And I'll see a certain story and I'll watch it play out. But then, depending on what news channel you're watching, they'll cut certain things and put it together with a certain narrative that puts forth whatever they're trying to push. And if all you're watching is that particular thing, then you're only seeing a certain grouping of facts that's going to lead you to believe a certain thing. They're not going to tell you, hey, this is very biased and slanted. No, they're just going to put it out there, and you're going to take it in thinking that it's all of what the truth is.
Right.
And then you're formulating your opinion of the situation and everybody else off of this slanted information, not realizing that you've just been manipulated. You've just been duped. I'm not saying it's untrue. I'm just saying it's not the whole truth. It's out of context, right? And so that happens to us all day long. There's a great, fantastic documentary out right now on Netflix, and it's called The Social Dilemma. And in there, I knew most of it, but even I was surprised with some of it, how deep it goes with the media and things of that nature. And one of the examples that I've used multiple times to illustrate to people is, depending on what part of the country you're in, when you go to Google and you type in a search thing, it typically finishes whatever your sentence is, guessing what you're going to say. Well, depending on what part of the country you're in will depend on what that thing is filled with. The example that they used in the documentary was, you type in global warming, certain parts of the country, it'll finish it by saying is a hoax. Towards other parts of the country will say is a serious problem. And so you're not even getting all the facts. You're getting the facts that these algorithms think that you should have based upon your past behavior. That's manipulation, right? That's just feeding you what you already believe in. And so if you think that you're not forming these opinions and you're not judging other people based upon these, and it's all manipulation, I got bad news for you. You're going to have to humble yourself to realize that these opinions you formed, some of them are other people's opinions that you're just regurgitating now as your own. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing per se. What the bad thing is not knowing. Right? Like, I'm fully aware of my biases. I'm fully aware that there's certain situations that I'm coming in and I've already got a preconceived notion. But knowing that immediately allows me to hear the other side, because I'm fully aware that my opinion is formed based upon my own personal habits and experiences, and so is yours. And so I try to use humility in a sense of, let me listen to where you're coming from, because you might see things from a completely different perspective that I had no clue. And I might not change my opinion afterwards, but I'm going to at least give it the chance. And because I'm going to humble myself enough to realize I don't have all the facts. I don't have all the perspectives. And I don't know where I've been lied to and where I haven't been lied to. And make no mistake, you're being lied to all day long. Go ahead. I know you got some big opinions on this one, so.
Well, I'm listening, to be honest with you, because this manipulation topic, or this part of the topic, is huge.
Well, you've said it a lot when you always say that they're like, you don't want to be used as a pawn in political stuff, when they tell you how you're supposed to think as a brown person.
Right. As a Latino American, I'm first generation here. My father got into this country because he was drafted at an advanced age, not 18 years old, older than that, from Puerto Rico into the Vietnam War. Spent 2 tours of duty there, learned English in Vietnam pretty much. The reason he went to the second tour is because he was manipulated on that too. He says, you're either going to go to Korea or you're going to go to Vietnam. And because he didn't know what was happening in Korea at the time, but he knew what was happening in Vietnam, and he was at least familiar with that place, he picked Vietnam. Who wouldn't? At that, he, in his head, he thought we were fighting in Korea as well. But it was also for a longer thing. So they said, go 6 months here or go a year here. And he had already been away from his family and not seen his kid and stuff. So, I do realize there's a lot of conning and manipulation in the world, and we need to be aware of that. But don't try to use me, because I know you're already trying to use me. You're trying to use that I'm 50 years old. You're trying to use that I'm a Latino American. You're trying to use it that I make a certain amount of money. You're trying to use that I live in a certain region of society. We know this. Do you remember when Cadillac started using Led Zeppelin songs? I say that because I knew I was old when Cadillac started using Led Zeppelin songs. I realized, wow, I am now Cadillac's demographic. So to truly get it, you have to admit that everything you view, everything you listen to, and everything you like is not only because you want to view it or because you want to like it. It's because from the day you were born, they've been trying to sell you soap. And they've been trying to figure out how to best sell you the kind of soap that they want to sell you. And we bought into it. And it's all right. I mean, it's part of who we are. I mean, it's impossible to escape. That's why the whole marketing business is as big as it is. And as much as people like to knock on Big Pharma, that's why Big Pharma is what it is too. Because there's, for instance, if I say the pink stuff, you know what I'm talking about. Yep. If you have a stomach ache and I say the pink stuff, you know what I'm talking about. If you say take 2, call me in the morning, there used to be only one medication that people would say when you say you'd have a headache, and it was Tylenol, over and over. First it was aspirin, then it was Tylenol. I mean, if I say Coke, for instance, I want to get a Coke. Mm-hmm. It's not soda, Coke.
A Q-tip.
Coke, yeah, exactly, a Q-tip.
That's a brand.
It's a brand. And so we started using brand names as regular words. Well, people, that doesn't change when it comes to social discussions. That doesn't change when it comes to these other things. So when I say stay in your lane, or you say stay in your lane, or I say it's time to be humble, I realize that the reason I think and feel the way I do is an accumulation of so many of my personal experiences and my personal stuff. But not only on top of that, but it's what they want me to experience, what they wanted me to visually see, what they wanted me to think about those things. And that's also become a source of people attacking people. What I've noticed is when people say something in regards to an opinion, I've heard people act like they must have got it from that particular television station or that particular person that said it. And it's like, well, wait a minute. We all get things from people who said. But there are some of you out there that actually said, that do this, I fact-checked it, or I reviewed it myself, or I looked it up, or I read it, or I researched it.
Do your research.
Dude, I can follow the money on every fact checker. I can follow all. Come on, come
Yeah.
on. Let's
Well,
let's at
even
least let's at least understand that we're all being manipulated. Let's at least understand that all of us are out of our lane on some of these issues that we're
yeah,
actually fighting our family members on, that we're actually losing friends over.
yeah,
We actually don't disagree. I'm going to say it as loud as I can possibly say it. The things that we are arguing about today and fighting today, we as a public do not disagree.
no,
So
not really.
stop pointing at people like Trinity and saying, you have to either say it like I do, think like I do, or else you're evil and bad. And that is not true, Trinity. And
Yeah,
that is what I'm struggling
yeah,
with in
I
all
agree.
this stay your lane stuff and all this humility stuff. I just want people to kind of just back off and chill.
Well, I think that's part of humility is learning to back off and chill a little bit, right?
So,
Is to learning that, like we talked, just sticking with the manipulation theme, right? Like a lot of these opinions that we have, they're not even ours. They were given to us, and we have to understand that, right? Like it goes all the way back to school. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't know this until I got older, right? Once I got older and I started meeting other adult friends from different countries, and we started talking about just what we were taught in history, some of it was vastly different than what I was taught. And when I started talking to them, and then I started actually looking it up online from different sources, I started to realize, wait a minute, history is written by the victor. What that means? A perfect example. I'm going to ruin. I'm going to do my best not to ruin it for everybody. So I'll try to leave spoilers out of it for the most part. But I recently started watching a show that I thought was going to be stupid, but I started watching it and I was blown away with actually how good it is. Cobra Kai, and it's basically the continuation of the Karate Kid story, right? It started out as like this, it's like a YouTube channel or whatever, a YouTube show, and it was like a fan made thing. I never took it seriously. It started gaining some steam, and then Netflix picked it up and put it on. So I don't know when the other day I just let me watch it. Blown away at how good it actually really is, and not only is it good, but there's a moment in there where we've for the Karate Kid we've been given LaRusso's perspective the entire movie.
right.
And from his perspective, he's the victim, and he's this poor little kid who got bullied or whatever. But there's a segment in the show where we get to hear Johnny's perspective, and when you hear it from his perspective and how he saw things, suddenly Daniel's not this poor little victim anymore. He feels very vindicated in what he did, and as a viewer, I'm like, damn, wow, dude, you just totally flipped the script in my head about who was the victim in that show.
Yeah.
And it's all about manipulation and perspective, right? That's proof positive that it's all about what you're shown and what you're given privy to.
Well,
And so, as adult, like coming from America, what we're taught in our history classes is oftentimes going to be very beneficial to America. So it's going to make us think that we're the number one in everything, we're the best.
right,
But
of
when you
course.
talk to other people who grew up, and I have a couple of people watching now who grew up in other countries, their perspective is a lot different. What they were taught in their history books is a little bit different than what we were taught. And so you have to understand that things that you think you know as fact, humble yourself to realize that you didn't see that with your own eyes. You were given that from somebody who had an agenda.
Yeah.
And understand that. When you're regurgitating that, you're regurgitating whoever's agenda it was that gave it to you in the first place. And so that is what I mean by stay humble. Stay humble in the sense of you're not as in charge as you think you are. There's a great show on television I think Netflix even has it now too. It's called Brain Games, right?
Right.
And in the show on Brain Games, they do these little tricks and stuff where they show you how the brain can very be easily manipulated. For instance, if they want you to buy something for $10, they'll put one for 30 and put one for 8, or put one for 30 and put one for 5. You're going to buy the $10 because inherently we don't want to go to the most expensive because then we think we're being overpriced. We don't go to the least expensive because we think that we're not getting a good value, so we usually go in the middle. So if I really want you to spend 10, I'm not going to put it for 10. I'm going to put 20 and 5. You'll buy the 10. Almost hands down. There's outliers, but that's how easily you're manipulated. There's shows on TV where they show people who will see a certain thing happen, but if 9 other people say it didn't, then you're more likely to say you didn't see it either because you're trying to fit in. That is manipulation. That's how easy it is done. And so humble yourself to realize these things that you're so passionate about, it could be based on a completely false narrative. And so you have to humble yourself to realize that your opinion, yes, while it is valid, so is everybody else's.
Yeah, and the rise of the dollar stores is proof of some of the things that you're saying. They have. I remember when you used to believe that because it's called the dollar store, everything in there was $1 or less, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not true.
No, it's not true at all. Unless you go to a Dollar Tree.
But they're everywhere. Dollar General, Dollar Store, Dollar Tree, Dollar this, Dollar. You know why they use the word dollar in there? You know why? You know why they use the word dollar? Just the same way that why everybody uses the word free and discount and things like that. Well, marketing people are marketing people, and I'm a consumer. And I like to view myself as a consumer. And when I call myself a consumer, I don't get so frustrated or angry about what's, of what's happening, because I realize I'm a consumer. And when I realize I'm in a certain demographic, I appreciate even more. What I don't like is going outside of that and then trying to educate someone else and say, this is the best this. Like, for instance, Trinity and I love Celsius.
Yes.
Right? Love it. We want them to be a sponsor for the Hope-a-thon. We speak about Celsius all the time. We drink Celsius all the time. But Trinity, prior to Celsius even being in my life, what did I used to take? When you used to say, try this one, that one, you came up with I don't know how many different ones, like Bang and stuff like that, right? And which one what did I always drink, Trinity?
Monster.
That's right, Monster
Yeah,
Rehab.
and my go-to was always sugar-free Red Bull.
That's right. So all of a sudden you brought this to my attention, and even though it's marketed to people not like me, it's marketed to people that work out, blah, 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 stuff like that, I tried it. Why? Because I'm open-minded enough to try it, because typically you don't want to try something else, or you refuse to believe it. But this is just proof, again, that I'm the most humble person Trinity. I tried it. And
testify, brother, testify.
And it was actually good. So it's almost akin to listening, right? It's akin to listening. Trying something is akin to listening. And I had to admit the overall effect was better. The overall flavors, and because the Monster that I liked was one specific Monster one, Monster Rehab. But this one had more varieties, and I got the same effect from the different varieties. So then I look on the back and all the stuff that I had to be concerned with, and this is not to attack you, Monster, so don't get upset. It's just this had a better profile for a person of my age group with my sedentary level, and it was just, for as often as I'm going to drink them, then this is going to give me the less possible risk, according to the information I know. Now, I could be getting BS'd, and this I know. I know this is probably equally as dangerous as Red Bull and Monster and all that stuff, but they got me. They got me because it came through healthy people. It came through people that work out like Trinity, and it comes through trendy people. So I feel like, wow, I'm drinking the best stuff out there. So I don't know, to be honest with you, but I will say I like it, and I probably like it a lot because of all the people that tend to drink it alongside with me and like it with me. They investigate these things more than I do, and I'm not going to spend the time to investigate it. So, to be honest with you, if I don't look at the can right now, I don't even know how many calories it has. But someone like Trinity might know exactly that. Well, he doesn't count calories, so he may not know that, but he'll know carbs and
I think it's like 80 or something.
Yeah,
that's my guess.
Look, we're at a time, and we're running out of time, Trinity, because we have to get to that meeting right after.
Yeah.
We have a hard stop. We have a hard stop today, so But if you want me to do the final words, I can do them now, and then we can get to the hard
let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, here's your moment. Shine, brother, shine.
All right. Well, I don't know about shining, but what I would say is, listen. When we talk about staying in your lane, we're not trying to offend anybody. This came up because, we've experienced a lot of things where we're being told a lot of educational stuff, whether you feel like you're being shamed or whether you feel like you're being educated or whether you feel like people are speaking before all the facts are out. Look, bottom line is it's real hard to find a place to really break away from all the themes of the day, right? It's really hard to have a normal discussion without somebody thinking you're an idiot or somebody thinking that you're evil because of your thought process or you're stupid and manipulated for the other thought process. Whatever it is, we all have our lane, and it's important for us to understand that lane. And our lane today is just to talk about it, and to real talk about it is for all of us to admit that we're all being manipulated a certain way by what we listen to, by what we watch, by what we see, and then also by how we feel. more important than any manipulation is how you feel. So if you feel shamed by thinking a certain way, or you feel like you're on the wrong side of history by feeling a certain way, or you feel like, golly, people I really care about, look up to, and like are actually thinking like this, so maybe I need to change the way I think. Maybe not. Maybe not. Because remember, they're all being manipulated just like you by people who want to sell soap. At the end of the day, everybody we listen and watch is out there selling soap. Hell, even our show has sponsors. Now, the difference is our sponsors don't call us out on anything. I've never received a call from any of our sponsors trying to dictate anything we've ever had to say. Hell, the longest running sponsor on our show is Orange County, right? Orange County right here in Florida. Orange County from day one. I said, what do you want the first show to be on when it came to the first episode of The Couch Live? And they said, can you do it on gateway drugs? And I said, all right, I'll do it on gateway drugs, but it's not going to be what you think. I'm going to do it on sugar and caffeine. Is that okay? And they said, absolutely. You're the professional. Do whatever you want. From that day forward, I knew that we had a really good sponsor. And I say that because NBC, ABC, CBS, ESPN, Disney Channel, Fox News, all of them, CNN, MSNBC, they all sell soap. They all sell soap. And they all have people to answer to. And they're messing with us right now. They're all messing with us. And now they've infiltrated our sports. And now our sports are messing with us. And I just want to watch football. I just want to watch the best football team, Pittsburgh Steelers, kick the shit out of everybody that exists. Because I really believe that Ben is back. And I believe that we got the best team in football. That's my humility for the day. Talk to you later.
Yeah, I might have a debate with you on the best football team. But regardless, before I do my wrap up here, first of all, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that little subscribe button for me, please. Leave a comment. It actually does help. If you're listening to this on one of the podcasts, awesome. Keep listening, share with your friends and stuff. Trying to get the word out there. We do appreciate you. And as always, if you want to follow us on social media, you could check him out at The Dope Doctor, and I'm at The Dharma Guy. We are at WPSN99 or at Now Matters More. We'd love to see you guys follow us on there and reach out. If you guys ever have any topics that you want to listen to or have a question, you can reach out and we'll do our best to address that as well. So, yeah, man. So today's topic, once again, try to give you guys some actual action plans to apply these things. So the first thing I have as far as tip is concerned is understand that being humble isn't really a bad thing, right? It doesn't mean you're less than. It doesn't mean you're dumb, or doesn't mean anything other than you are just one of many. In the big scheme of things, in the world, we're just basically, a raindrop in the ocean. In our own way, we're insignificant. We're significant to one another, insignificant in our lives, but in a big scheme of life, we're really insignificant. We're just a dot in the ocean. So understand that being humble just means understanding and realizing that. The second one I will give you is when you hear, be humble enough that when you hear another opinion, something that is even drastically different than your own, instead of being turned off by that or judging that, figure out the why. Try to understand the why. Why did this person arrive at that opinion? Even if it's the same as mine, it doesn't matter. What's the why? And then ask yourself the same question. If I have an opinion about something, if I'm responding a certain way to something, why? Why did I come to that conclusion? What events in my life, what experiences have I had, and how do they impact me that makes me think that way right now? And then finally, the third one is prior to using whatever platform you have, or prior to offering up your opinion or whatever it may be, first stop and ask yourself, what I'm getting ready to say, what I'm getting ready to contribute, is it truthful and useful? And understand that truth isn't just your version of the truth, it's everybody's. So is it truthful and is it useful? And if it's not both of those, then maybe it just doesn't need to be said. Sometimes silence is the appropriate response. But anyways, that's all I got for today. We do have a hard stop. We have some a meeting we got to get to for the Hopeathon. Once again, you can check out the Hopeathon at thehopeathon.com, or you can go to nowmattersmore.org and click on the Hopeathon, and it'll lead you to the same place. We look forward to hearing from you guys, and that's all we got. So now that you know better, do better. Peace. Are you still here? What are you doing? I told you, go do better.